Okay, we're recording. I guess before I answer any questions, I'll address grading and where I'm at in that process. I've done, I think, about 50 of the essays so far. I may or may not be able to get to grading them during the week. I may use during the week for other, like getting lessons ready and grading discussion posts for the other classes instead of grading essays. Not 100% sure yet. I mean, or I may take some time. You never know. Of the ones I've seen so far, pretty good. Not a whole lot of issues with them. There were some people who were like a little, when I say a little, like completely off topic, so to the point that I couldn't tell that it fit any of the topics. I mean, maybe, I don't know, just look at the feedback, and if you had a 0, that was probably why. Very few people got a 0, but if it was off topic to the point where I couldn't tell how it fit with anything, take a look there. Not many people got lower than a 70, though. I mean, for the most part, people are at least narrating something within one of the topics. And as a result, people are at least passing. A lot of people not showing me evidence of the change, though. For the most part, though, people are doing that. I had a bunch of people starting papers off with questions, asking questions, talking about the paper within the paper, which I don't like. I mentioned that in class, right? I mean, we put that on the thing.
I think I did that afterwards. I wrote my paper before this.
Before? Well, I mean, it happens. But I had some people, it was like the day it was due, which we talked about it by then, like they were submitting it. Because I'm already on the day that it was due, grading those, and I'm still getting them. I mean, any paper, don't say, in this paper I will, or my first point is, nothing like that. I want you talking about the paper within the paper. It takes away all the magic. And questions, just don't ask. There is one type of question I noticed seems to be at least somewhat effective. It was when somebody was asking themselves questions within the narrative. Like, for example, if you say, somebody said, I think in a paper, it was like, isn't one of the greatest feelings getting into bed at the end of the long day? I hate going to bed. It's one of my least favorite things in the world. Like, I can't stand that I have to sleep. I resent it. I feel like it's biologically a cruel joke. And then if I could just stay up 24 hours a day, I mean, I could consume everything I want without ever having to stop. Not food. I mean, like reading, movies, film, video games, all that stuff. Sometimes I get pissed off that we don't have 36-hour days. That would just be great. An extra 12 hours, just do whatever. So when the person asked that question at the beginning about sleeping, I was like, no, I don't feel that way. I hate it. And how am I supposed to go through an essay when that was like your hook? That was the, hey, everybody's going to be on board with this, right? Because everybody likes getting in the bed at the end of the day. Not this guy. So everything that follows in that essay is sort of like started off with you saying, you remember how I don't understand you at all? Let's go, read. We're on a journey. And I was just like, okay. It just didn't really work. So I really don't think people should ask questions in the essay. But one person in their narrative said something along the lines of, as they got closer, like it was something like, am I honoring I started asking myself questions. Am I honoring my grandfather's memory? Would he look down on me and think that but it was framed in such a way where that person was asking themselves questions that it was very clear that you weren't meant to answer. You were just watching someone ask questions of themselves. And that was a little different because it wasn't meant as like a strategy to get me interested. It was meant as somebody just sort of asking why, and that worked. Hopefully you noticed in the feed, like if you have a lot of feedback, like a lot of stuff that I wrote, generally that's something that is possible to be fixed. usually. If it said something along the lines of, this is good, you're detailing the experience well, and you showed how you changed. Nice work. That's like my attaboy, and you probably got an A, 95, 96, something like that. I'm sorry, attaboy or attagirl. Attaperson, I guess we should say now. I don't know. Is there anybody who doesn't identify as human? I mean, I guess if there's, if that's atta entity. If somebody considers himself to be, though, a non-thinking entity, I don't really know what to do with that. Atta inanimate object. But yeah. If I gave you some sort of lengthy commentary, that probably means there's something to be fixed. Also, don't just stick to looking at the feedback box. Take a look too at the document itself. Click the assignment, look at the document. I might have done some highlighting and been like, no, don't do this. Stop. This is a good sentence. I wrote that in one person's paper. They just kept saying such poignant things. Like it was like I'd never heard things put quite the way that person was putting things. Like it was a really good metaphor. Like what was it? I said my stomach felt as though I'd swallowed a pile of rocks, and I was sort of left to. I was left to figure out what exactly that meant, because it could just mean the heaviness. It could mean that awkward sense of pain that you feel sometimes when you're nauseous. Like there's a sharp pain somewhere, and you're also nauseous. So I mean, I could interpret that in multiple ways. Oh, that was really cool. I didn't say that a lot. I tend to be, I don't know, it's probably my father, but I tend to be light on praise, heavy on criticism. I don't know if that's in general what Texas dads are. Is it? You mostly hear what you've done if it's something wrong.
Yeah. I think that's just dads.
I feel bad too because I'm the same way as a father. Like my daughter cleans her room and she was like, "Come look at it. I clean my room." I was like, "Yeah." I walk in there like, "Wow, this looks good." We need to get a magic eraser and kind of go over that desk though. Do we have any of those? She's like, "I don't know." And I was like, "Oh, I failed. Damn it! I was supposed to say good job," and then just walk away. You cleaned that? Oh, you cleaned that too. Nice work. Well, look how clean that is, huh?
How old is she?
She's 14.
Oh, okay.
No, the other one. Good job with your collie. Clean up. Yeah, clean up. Yeah. No, bring it. She runs away. She's like, "Oh yes, I'm going through the motions, but I still want to hold it." So, I think that for the most part covers what I've graded so far. I don't think that I've got many other comments to make. Oh, and by the way, if I said good job, nice work, that kind of thing, and you got a 95, that's not bad. That's like my 100. So, some people might look at a 95 and go, "Oh, how do I get those last 5 points?"
That's what I was.
Well, don't try.
If you try, you might end up getting worse.
If you got a 96, 97, 98, 99, something like that, I didn't give a 99 because they had a few typographical errors. I can't tell if the person read through it at the end, so how do I know? But I've given at least 198 on this essay so far. But that should feel like you're getting 120 or so, on the normal teacher scale. Do y'all want further explanation as to why I do that?
No.
Does that make a lot of sense? Does it make any sense? Let me quickly sum up. I usually can draw a grade scale, but it might make more sense once everybody has their grades, so I don't have to redo it. But essentially, it's pretty easy on my grading scale to get to a 70. It doesn't take very much effort. You could be the kind of student who starts writing 2 hours before it's due, and you can get a 70. Now, I really am all about content, though, so it's got to be all the content's got to be hit, all the questions that I'm asking you're fulfilling. Generally needs to meet that length in order for the details to have all satisfied what I'm looking for. Because I create the length for a reason. It's I think that minimum, when I put as a minimum, it's a minimum, not like a hopefully you get there kind of number. That's what the minimum expectation I have for somebody who could write a good one. So as long as you're doing the things that I ask, if it's a first experience, you're detailing that experience, not just telling me you had one, but you've detailed it. That's generally how you get to 70. A takes a little bit more effort. You don't have to do everything exactly as I've asked. Not miss anything, do everything, with the detail that I've expected.
Make sure it's clear.
But then 96, 97, 98, 99, that's like when people, not only they've done what they're supposed to, but they did it in like a very impressive way. Or I just was kind of like mildly floored by something that I read. I was like, oh, impressive. But if you got anything below a 95, I usually said something or made some indication of what you could do to fix it to get up to that 95. Past that, it's a little harder. Like if somebody were to ask me sometimes, like, how do I get from a 95 to like 100? Sometimes the answer might be throw this paper completely out and start over, because this event was not good enough to get to 100. It's just I don't see how it's possible. Like you satisfy the criteria, but maybe if it was like my first time riding in a wagon and I skinned my knee, that's not a. You may have somewhat convinced me that you had an internal change, but you're never ever going to convince me that changed your life. You are a different person now as a result of this falling out of a wagon at 6. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to mention. That's why I keep just jibber-jabbering on, because I wanted to get to this. There was some people who their change was essentially, this is what I call this category of change. I don't think it's very impressive. I don't like this type of change. I don't count it as an internal change, really. When somebody says, I used to do a thing, but after having gone through this, I no longer do that thing type of change. For example, I used to drive at night, then I got into a wreck, now I no longer drive at night. I don't consider that to be a significant internal change. That's just, I used to do a thing, I'm scarred from doing this, now I don't do that thing. Like that, to me, that's just like touching a burner and getting burned and going, ow, and then you don't touch burners anymore. It's not like whoa, like I see the universe in a new way. It's just like, ouch, no. It's kind of like a stimulus response thing. It's not like a change in the way you like see the world. It's like kind of like you just realize there's a new light switch, and you're not going to turn it on. You're like, I'm not turning that one on. Might shock me. That was a terrible metaphor. Terrible.
No,
just awful.
I got a buddy at his house who I can't turn on. So.
Well, just because it's anecdotally a good metaphor for you doesn't mean it's good for everyone. Terrible metaphor. Light switch. Now that I've covered, I think, kind of the basics of the essays and where I'm at so far, I got about 50 left, so about half done with the 1301 essays. Questions about anything related to class at all before we move on to what we're talking about today?
How long do we have to revise our essays, like piecing them apart?
You only have until week 14, day 2. So about 11 more weeks. Well, we're in week 4 now.
Yeah.
So 10.2 weeks. Or is it 9.7? I don't know. Math is hard. Subtraction. I will let you know that I was talking to the other class the other day. I think that I don't want there to be the implication or the inference that if you do submit something for revision, I'm going to turn around and grade it really fast. Revisions usually are graded in the small moments that I have between, I don't know what you would call it, like essay grading sections. So usually my essay 1 grading butts right up against my essay 2 grading. So like I'm finishing the last few Britlets right as the essay 2s start coming in from you guys. So I just roll right on into the next. Same thing happens between essay 2 and essay 3 because they're all like 2-week turnarounds. So it's like usually I'm grading 1 weekend, the next, and then boom, here's another paper, grade 1 weekend, the next, boom, another paper, so on and so forth. As a result, I generally don't have any chance to grade until we hit about week 8 for revisions, like maybe week 9. Sometimes if you email me and say, hey, I really need to know because I don't think I did a great job on this revision, and I kind of want some feedback quick, if you could like grade it for me. Sometimes I can do that. I'll say, okay, I'll jump on there real quick and grade it for you so you know if you have to revise again. But that's by special request. And if I get a whole bunch of special requests, I can't necessarily meet all of them. Like I have 20 people go, yeah, grade mine right now. And I'm just like, well, I'm grading something else. But usually there's like a little break between like week 8 and week 10 where I have a little bit of a chance to grade. And then the vast majority of revision grading gets done between week 13 and week 14. So there's not a whole lot of times I actually sit and grade revisions, but I'll take them all the way until week 14, day 2. I would caution everybody, though, against turning everything in week 14, day 2, because that only gives you one opportunity. If you like get something in like week 6 and then I don't get it to it until week 14, I'll let you still turn in revisions after that, though, because you turned it in way before. Like you spent a lot of time on it. You were preparing, and I'm not going to make you have to suffer for my time restraints. Good question. More questions?
Did you say we start working on the labs now?
Yes. Labs are open, ready to go. It currently, I think, counts your pre-test as part of your grade. I'm turning that off. I'm turning off the pre-test being part of your grade, but I think you still have to take it for you to be able to take the rest.
I've done one already.
Without doing the pre-test? Because I noticed that the pre-test gives you a numeric grade instead of just getting to 100. Yet it factors into your lab average, which I don't see the point of that. It's like if you walk into a class the first day and they're like, let's see what you know. And then they're like, wow, not much. You knew 20% of the material. And they're like, okay, that's your grade on your first test. And it's like, what? I don't understand. It's like you're being penalized for what you don't know at this point, which I don't get. So I'm taking that off of the grade, the counting of the grades. And some people have done quite a few labs so far. Not a whole lot, but some people have done a bunch. They're pretty swift if you know how to get through them.
Yeah, all we got to do is get to the points that they tell us to get to, right?
Right. All you have to do is you only have to do the learning curve quizzes. That's the only thing you're graded on. And you only have to make sure you get to that point value they're asking for.
Because there's more questions after you get to that. I don't know if you have to do them or not.
Yeah, there's more. But once you hit that point, yeah, for example, by the way, everybody, once you hit 300, it's not going to stop you. Like, say, if there's a quiz that's like 300 points, you get to 300, like 302 or something, it's going to say, it might not even have any fanfare. You just kind of need to keep an eye on that number, because once you hit it, you're done. You got the points. So you can just exit out. But it'll like let you keep going.
Yeah, I did like 5 more questions after that before I realized I was at 300.
Yeah. So, yeah, don't do any more than you have to do. Get to where you need to be in that and then stop, is my suggestion. But I don't like wasting effort. Like if I know, hey, I'm here, that's the points, move on. So that's my suggestion to you as well. More questions? We have time. Don't worry that your question might affect us getting out early today, because that won't happen. Okay. Then I guess we will talk about cause effect, since the assignment has been assigned. And there are a few words on the assignment that might not be readily apparent as to what they mean. I think this is one of those days where I kind of need to turn off at least one of those light switches in the back.
Is that a hand?
That's back hand.
Somebody disconnected the monitor cable. About 90% sure that if I try to Ah, here we go. That's way down there.
I was gonna do it on Thursday when I got home, so my buddy Brian.
Ew. Okay. Here we are. Cause and effect, identification, analysis, and prediction. Because you have to identify a cause, you have to analyze what the cause-effect relationship is, and predict maybe what will happen, depending on the needs. I realized without that in there, it would not cause the desired effect. Here we go. Okay. So cause and effect essays specifically address why things happen. Cause and effect essays may address only causes, only effects, or both, as we discussed when I assigned the assignment. They address why things happen, that's most important. May address only causes, only effects, or both, depending on the needs. It will not address neither. That would make it a different essay. So cause and effect analysis explains why something happened or is happening or predicts what probably will happen. That page number may not be relevant anymore, but still from the book. So cause and effect is not limited in time. It can explain causes from the past that brought about past effects or current or even future causes that will affect future effects. There are many different ways to go about this, which I have drawn here on this official looking document. So if we have a past cause that brings about a past effect, you might say, to what degree did the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand lead to, what, World War I or World War II? World War I?
One, yeah.
Yeah, because there's a temporary armistice, right? You might say, well, okay, well, how did the past, the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand, affect our current political climate, or like who got elected in the 2000, who will get elected in the midterm? Well, I mean, that's how it will. Like, so what's happening, I guess, right now? So how did the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand affect literally what's happening? I don't know, I guess you can interpret now to be like a broad range of now. So I guess the midterm elections could be considered this year, because that's right now. That's happening. You could even say like something in the past affect the future. So how will the assassination of the Archduke Ferdinand and thus, you know, the entrance into World War II and thus World War I and then World War II affect our economy in the future? The fact that we went through World War I and World War II. You could say how, see, present, you can't literally have a cause that is absolutely present with its effect, but you can have, they can be very close within the realm of what we call the present. For example, how will the mailers that Ted Cruz has been sending out that look like jury summons affect his ability to get elected in the 2018 midterms? Have y'all seen that? Like, it's like it comes and it says, summons, open immediately. And then you open it up and it says, you've been summoned to vote for Ted Cruz. And I was like, well, it's a little tricksy, but maybe that actually be illegal. Because I think there's a law passed about disguising campaign materials as legal documents. And then we say, like, how will maybe those or I guess we could go with a different present cause. How will, I don't know, Beto O'Rourke's performance in the 2018 midterms affect who becomes president in 2020? As I really think that it could. This sounds kind of like a wacky theory, but I feel like if Beto O'Rourke loses, you're most definitely going to have a Democratic president in 2020. If Beto O'Rourke wins, we may still get a Republican president. Isn't that a weird theory? I feel like if people think that the Democrats are winning, they might kind of back off their push. But if people think that the Democrats are losing, they may,
Rally.
yeah, the Democrats may rally, in 2020. We didn't do enough, then it happens. Or how will the presidential election in 2020 affect the economy in the 2030s? I don't know. It could have a drastic effect. Might not. So all of these are like causes in the past, or causes and effects in the past, or present, or future. Now, one thing you can't really have is a future cause that brings about a present or a past effect. That's only possible in time travel scenarios. Marty McFly steals the almanac in the future, sports almanac. How does that affect what Hill Valley looks like in 1985? Turns into like this evil Vegas kind of thing. But that's only possible in time travel scenarios, so it's not really something you have to worry about. But it can happen all throughout time. You get all kinds of needs for cause and effect. You can classify and divide causes and effects into various categories. And you could have multiple causes leading to an effect, or multiple effects coming from one cause. So let's say we have the single cause, I lost my job, and this could bring about many effects. They're all not necessarily related to each other. I mean, they're probably related, but it's not like one causes the next, which causes the next, which causes the next. They're all independent ones that are brought on the same cause. So I lose my job. One result of that is I don't have a whole lot of money. And that's just from losing my job. Don't have a whole lot of money at my disposal. Also from losing my job, I decide I'm going to go back to school. This may happen before I have little money. I'm going to have little money, but currently I know it's going to happen. So I'm going to let's go back to school, because that's something I can do, is work on my degree while I don't have a lot of money in a job. It says I lost my job could also mean that my wife will start working overtime at her work if the latter. This is before we got little money. This is maybe even before I've gone back to school. We're just going to make this decision. It's a good idea. Lost my job. We know that the kids are probably going to start getting smaller at Christmas. We're going to back up on how much we're spending. Maybe take some stuff back. We got the receipt. Closely watch finances, and that's before you've even got little money. You're just going to say, okay, let's really pay attention to what we're spending money on. Let's not go and eat out all the time. Actually, most people's track record is, if you've had money, it's very hard not to spend money. So for the first little while, you'll probably keep spending money on food, which is insane. Not like food to eat, that's absolutely necessary. Like fast food. You're like, oh man, I just lost my job. Just so upset. Let's just get McDonald's. It's so dumb. What?
Then you realize you don't have gas money.
Yeah, it takes a while sometimes for it to hit you that you don't have money. You're not going to. So all these can come from they can be different effects that come from this one thing, even though none of these are necessarily leading to the other. They all come from this one cause. You could also have a different thing happen. You could have multiple causes lead about to one effect. So if I take notes, I come to class, I study, I receive financial aid, all those things might result in me graduating. However, take one cause out, it might not be the same scenario. So if I come to class, study, receive financial aid, but I don't take notes, I may not graduate. I'm sure it's still possible, but coming to class, studying, maybe just book, receiving financial aid, might be possible if you didn't take notes. If I took notes, I studied, I received financial aid, I didn't come to class, well, probably you're going to get dropped every semester, so it's no way you're going to be able to graduate. I took notes, I came to class, I didn't study, but I received financial aid. You still might not, because especially in a major like nursing, if you're like, well, I'll just listen and remember all the body parts. Yeah, it's not gonna work. You're gonna study, make sure you know what's up. I took notes, came to class, studied, did not receive financial aid. Well, almost nobody would graduate, because they'd be like, all right, let's do it, guys. And they're like, well, we can't pay for your classes. And you're like, I'm going home. Some people pay out of pocket, but not everybody does. So it's not always guaranteed you're gonna be able to graduate. So take out any one of these from this equation, it no longer has the same effect. So it can go any way. You can have one cause, one effect, or multiple that bring about single, or multiple that bring about multiple. It's all kinds of craziness. And there's a phrase called a causal relationship, and it sounds, if I just use this word, my dad would say it's a big word. Did we already talk about this? I don't know if I mentioned this before in class. I said or I've said before that my dad would say that if I use the word causal, my dad would say, quit using your big words on me, like it's 6 letters. It just means there's a relationship that exists between cause and effect. So if I say there's a causal relationship between taking notes, coming to class, studying, receiving financial aid, and graduating, that just means there's a cause-effect relationship. So it's a way of saying cause-effect without having to use that whole phrase. Yeah. And most times we're talking about cause and effect, we're talking about very subtle, difficult to find relationships. Not everything is as simple. Usually unless you're in math. I feel like math is simple if you know what you're looking at. Math is the purest expression of logic. Where this brings about this, brings about this. But most places in life, I mean, shoot, even in the sciences where you do those science labs, you have to like try to leave out every single variable because even the tiniest introduction of a variable can result in everything going wrong. Did you ever see The Martian? Had like Matt Damon in it.
Oh yeah.
There's a moment where like he does all these calculations to determine like how to make this rocket fuel turn into water so that he can water plants on Mars. And then all of a sudden, like after he gets it started, he's like, "Yes, this worked." It blows up, like it explodes, and he's like, "What in the world?" And he realizes he forgot to calculate in his equation the oxygen that he would breathe in and exhale that was not processed by his body. So because oxygen's really, really flammable. And so in not including the amount that he would be breathing in and exhaling every day and not like processing, he accidentally blew himself up. Like the tiniest little variables can affect everything. And most situations are incredibly complex like that. The types of causes that we have, there are the main cause. In topic 2, it's called major cause for whatever reason. I don't know why they did that in the book, but they call it the major cause. But essentially it's the same as the main cause. It's the most important cause of many. And then there are contributory causes, which are the less important causes. They contribute, but they aren't the main cause. So the book uses the example of a roof collapse in Connecticut, or at least it did, where it still does. Okay. It was snowing really, really heavily, and then this roof collapsed, and they said, "Oh, well, it was the heavy snowfall. That's what caused the roof to collapse." And they said, "Well, there's a bunch of other like big roofs in the area that have sustained heavy snowfall. They're not collapsing." And when they went back and they looked, they found that it wasn't actually the snow that had been the main cause of the roof collapse. It was merely a contributory cause. The main cause was the poor design of the roof to withstand heavy snowfall, because they probably cut some corners somewhere. It was easier that way. There are also immediate causes and remote causes. This is directly relevant to topic 1, because immediate causes are the ones that are easy to see. You ever heard of? It's not like immediate, like right now, but it sort of is related to that. I mean, it's
the obvious stuff.
It's in close proximity too, is essentially what immediate means in this scenario. You ever heard like maybe officers say like, we've got like 3 officers in the immediate vicinity, something like that. That just means that they're close. It doesn't mean like they're right now. It just means everybody's immediate, middle. They're close to the middle, the center of where they need to be. So it might be something that closely precedes the effect in time, or distance, like it's very close by, but it's something that's easy to see because it's right there close to the effect that's happening. Remote causes, these are less obvious perhaps because they involve something in the past or far away, like the design of the roof or the design of the city streets, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. But somebody designs the roof, that's like 20, 30 years ago. That's not the first place you're going to look for why did the snow collapse. You see a bunch of snow, roof collapse, snow's fault, when really that's a contributing factor. You should build a roof to sustain, heavy snowfall. I can understand if it, they had that snow in Atlanta a few years back. There's all those pictures on the internet. People couldn't drive in Atlanta. There was like cars on fire on the highway. It was like an apocalypse or something. But like you would not expect somebody in Atlanta to build a roof that would sustain heavy snowfall, like tons of snow on it. So
I wouldn't necessarily call it poor design, but it is still the main cause of snowfall. It was the roof never designed to hold snow. They didn't think that was necessary. Also, I've got this scenario. So this looks weird, maybe at first, but what you're looking at is something that's been annoying to me for about the last, I don't know, 8-10 years. This is my house. We live in Commerce, and this is my, foundation here, the garage. There's our driveway. There's a street, and then there's a street that goes here, and then another street up there. So when it rains, we found out that you have those heavy rains where like it's hard, like you're stuck in Walmart, and you're like suddenly it starts raining. You like run to your car, and you can't really even see. You're just like, and you kind of have to go like this to even like see me. And by the time you get to your car, you're soaked. You ever had those kind of rains before? You're like, oh my gosh, you're on a chain. Need a towel even to sit in my car. Well, those kinds of rains, when they come fast for like 30 minutes to an hour, we figured out that those flood our garage. And if it floods high enough, it can actually get under the walls into our living room, where we've installed flooring. I believe it's laminate flooring is what you call it, so that if water gets underneath it or on it, essentially it'll just start to warp and bow, and we'll have to replace the whole thing. It's very hard to replace just a couple of planks in a massive warped floor. Yeah, it's difficult. It's going to be very expensive too. So this, of course, became a concern of ours. And it happens after every big giant rain. And we're getting more and more as the years go on. We get these random, huge, heavy rains. I figured out that about the only thing that I could do was to build a very embarrassing looking, my wife still complains about it to this day, cinder block barrier in front of our garage. It's the only thing that'll keep the water out. And there's sandbags there too in the front. I also put like, I don't know, terry cloths underneath the cinder blocks. So I figure once those get water in them, it's going to be very hard to push more underneath. And the cinder blocks like a giant barrier. The reason I have to do this is one time I managed to be home when the rain came like this. We weren't at work. The first few times we were like in our garage with brooms trying to sweep the water out, and there was so much water coming so fast. We now have like that wall up and a pump, like a pump that we bought at Lowe's that does like, I want to say it does like 50 gallons a minute. And we figured out if it comes on, it takes about 10 minutes to pump the water down to where it's only that much. So once it pumps it like this high, and then it pumps down to that. And luckily that keeps but sometimes, like if we were to not have the wall there, the water would be coming so fast we couldn't pump it out as fast as it was coming in. So we've had people come and we say, hey, here, and I show them the video. Like you can see that it's insane. Like the video is like our entire yard, this whole area here is completely underwater when we have these big rains. The whole thing. And then we have people come and they're like, yeah, we could dig out a little trench here, put a pump in your yard. I'm like, you don't understand. The entire driveway is underwater.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter if you put a pump. The pump is going to be underwater.
You can't do a French drain?
You're going to be pumping 50 gallons a minute while 2,000 gallons a minute are coming across our yard. It's not going to do anything. It'd be like that hilarious picture you see of the guy with like his boat's like sinking and he's got a spoon going like this, that's not going to work. And so finally I got a video of it while I was home, and I was driving home, and I noticed something. I had always thought that it was just the poor design of the house and the foundation. When I realized that the whole yard was underwater, and it's not even like, it doesn't look like it should be. That's the weird thing. I realized one day when I was coming home that water comes down this curb, and water comes down this curb. And then I noticed that the water comes off these roads, and I was driving in this really bad rain. And the water comes off of that road and comes on this one. So you got kind of like 3 curbs worth of water here. At one point, the curb here is higher than the center of the road. All the water from this side, well, most, like about 2/3 of it, because it's not made to handle that, comes to this side of the road. So I've got basically like almost 3 to 4 curbs worth of water. It's like 2 streets worth of water come barreling down my side of the street. And the crown gets high again, so that the crown is actually higher than the curb. which is not supposed to happen. And all that water is barreling down my side of the street, barely staying on this side of the crown. And it has nowhere to go, so when it finally gets here, there's a deep depression here, and the water goes, here we go, there's a place to go. Whew. But there's a sharp rise right here on the road. So that it goes, we can't go anywhere. Because it can't go over that. It's already stopped here, so there's nowhere for it to go, so it all just comes pushing into our yard. And sometimes it gets almost high enough to the front door. Like it's almost like our whole, in our, our land is graded like it's supposed to be. But essentially, I figured out that what happened, I asked some people, and they said, every time that they've redone the streets for years, what they do is instead of scraping off the old layer like they're supposed to, they just keep piling on top. So that eventually, if they keep doing this, the road level will be higher than the yards, and so what's going to happen is all the water, instead of going down the street like it's meant to, is going to be going through people's yards. And it's washing everything away, and messing up foundations and all kinds of stuff. So, well, it was very simple for the people who come and they say, I can install a $2,000 pump here, and I'm sitting there saying it's not going to do anything. So they can say that all they want, but the rain itself is just a contributing factor. The driveway itself, the main cause was actually poor city street design. I don't know what did with that. I mean, I've talked to the city and they were like, well, that's interesting. Let me take a look at that. Let me call you back. Never got a call. Maybe it'd take a letter from a lawyer. I don't know. But that's going to be like a multi-million-dollar road fix. And I don't know if they're just going to be like, well, that one guy's having problems. But the video is pretty bad. Like, I'm just like, look, the whole yard's underwater. And here we go. It's coming in. And so it still comes through the thing, which is insane. So this isn't just for essays. I mean, you have to do proper cause-effect analysis in every aspect of your life. I mean, when you're choosing careers, all kinds of stuff. So always think about all the variables. Don't be satisfied with just what's immediate and in front of your face. Try to figure out what's the true cause of something. Never just be satisfied with, that's got to be it. When you hear somebody say Hillary Clinton's running a pedophile ring out of the pizzeria, maybe you think, wait, hold on. Does that make any sense? That nobody would have found that yet. Because there was a guy who walked into that pizzeria with a gun saying, I want y'all to shut down this pedophile ring in the basement. They're like, the hell are you talking about? Who are you? You're crazy. He's like, what? But it was online. Maybe think, why would somebody want people to think that Hillary Clinton was running a pedophile ring? Oh, for an election. Put some thought into it. We're seriously, we're trying to have class, John. Somebody say.
I'll say it.
I'm trying to have class, John.
John, I'm trying to have class here. I hear you out there in the hall. You're just, I'm just kidding. What do you got?
I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Are y'all able to get on PJC's Wi-Fi?
Not very well.
No.
So occasionally
No.
just slide.
I know Mr. Nichols' class is right beside Mr. Julius' class.
It's not even showing us.
That better be it. You better not get anything else. Almost go. Totally kidding. There's also causal change. It's very tempting for us to think this is how the world works, but it doesn't always. A causal chain is where one cause brings about the effect, which becomes itself the next cause, which becomes an effect, which brings about the next cause, and so on and so forth. And since we live through the world in sort of a time progression way, like that's how we make sense of the world. Days, nights, cycles, hours. That makes sense to us when this leads to this leads to this. So, but not everything works this way. So if, say, I missed 3 months of school in third grade from being very sick, that could lead me to be behind all the other students, which could lead me to cheat on my work, lead me to not understand the work I was doing, which leads me not to care, which leads me not to become frustrated with trying. Technically, the way a causal chain works is if I was to remove any link in this chain, that's why it's called a chain, those two bits of chain would no longer meet, and the whole thing would break down. So if I didn't miss 3 months of school in third grade, I probably wouldn't have done all that getting behind the other students, cheating on my work, not understanding the work. Or even if I missed 3 months of school from being very sick, but I didn't get behind the other students somehow, well, then I would have no reason to cheat, not understand the work. But if I did all this stuff and didn't cheat, it might be hard, but I might not stop understanding the work because I'm not using cheating anymore. And so really any of these moments that are taken out of the equation change the way it works. The great thing about cause effect is usually, depending on like if you have a topic specifically, it will probably tell you how to organize your paper. On the first topic that we have, which is how do you account for the popularity considered remote as well as immediate causes, which now we know means the immediate causes that are easy to see and the remote causes which are harder to see. You know, like for example, like Twitch. One of the easy things to see is that it fulfills a need and puts everything in one place instead of everybody having to go to YouTube for everything, and creates a social media out of Let's Play videos. Whereas maybe a remote cause would be, what is it in human psychology that makes people want to watch other people do something? Why is it that people want to spectate sports at all? I mean, what is the reasoning behind that? Maybe it's a voyeurism or something, watching somebody live their life. Maybe the same thing that makes reality TV popular is what makes that popular. I mean, consider not just what you see in front of your face, but other difficult to find things. And then with, well, I was saying causal chain organize your paper, but really cause effect organizes your paper on the topic. So each one of those papers should just one through after the other go through different causes. I mean, that's essentially what you do. Like such and such has become very popular. What is the reason for that popularity? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different reasons. The second topic, what is the major cause? Based on your identification of the cause, formulate up some possible solutions. So I should have like, this has become a big problem in the introduction, then, but here's the major cause. Then, here's one possible solution, another possible solution, another possible solution. Essentially, the topic itself tells you how to organize your paper, because you generally have causes that lead to effects, or if the topic tells you something different, like what are the likely effects, the whole time you should be talking about possible effects. It might be a good idea to categorize them. But no need to talk about causes. I mean, it essentially tells you exactly what to do in every single topic. And that's a good thing. Beware, and this is probably one of the greatest problems that we have in the world today, not just in writing essays, but the trap of, I believe it's called postdoc ergo propter hoc, is that right? Well, they don't have the whole thing. Postdoc ergo propter hoc is essentially Latin for after this, therefore because of this. Or causing this. Essentially meaning that because I saw something close by a thing, that is the cause. We do this all the time. It's one of the reasons that one poor guy's life was basically ruined. Remember that shooting we had in Dallas a few years ago? Not the one that we just had last week. I mean, I'm having to designate which shooting we're talking about here because they're just aren't.
How about the one in Garland?
No, it was the one in downtown Dallas where there was a shooter and he shot at cops specifically.
Oh, when they did the little rally or whatever.
Yeah, when they were doing the Black Lives Matter rally. And there was a dude who, he brought his gun to Black Lives Matter. Remember, he brought it to the rally. And there were people who were posting pictures of this guy, like, oh my gosh, this one guy brought a gun. And people go, dude with gun, there has been shooting, must be same guy. And they thought because they saw a dude with a gun, pictures that were posted right before the shooting, that this dude with a gun must be the guy who did the shooting. Which famously led to whatever dumb intern was at the Dallas PD Twitter, posted that guy's picture and said, we have our suspect. I really hope that lady got fired. I'm not talking like reprimanded. I mean, fired, because that kind of person is the kind of person who's not going to make that mistake just once. I mean, if that's the kind of, if you're posting that somebody's a suspect without having evidence of that, I mean, if that's not been, I mean, that to me, that's somebody who's going to have a problem with their job at all times. That means they're acting on emotion, not on logic, and you don't need somebody like that, running the social media for a major city's police department. So she says, we have our suspect, and then people start, firebombing this guy's like social media, and like he ended up getting taken into the police, and they took his gun, they took his clothes, and there was never any kind of apology issued, and like people were going to his house, and because they figured out where he lived, and like insulting him, and like I can't remember, there was some sort of property damage, maybe. I mean, look it up to verify. I'm not sure if that's the case, but I could have sworn there was some kind of property damage involved. It was very difficult for him to get his stuff back, even when he was cleared. He had trouble getting, because they would still consider it evidence. They probably were going to sell the clothes and the gun for the money. Instead of less at forfeiture. But it's important not to just be satisfied with you see something close by, therefore it must be the cause. I would hate to be the idiot who, a long time ago asked my girlfriend, the person who's now my wife, to marry me in a gazebo. You know that big gazebo in San Antonio? Like there's Alamo and there's a big old gazebo. I tried to ask her in a storefront where we both bought mood rings a few years prior that I was still wearing to that day. It was like this copper thing that would constantly cut me because literally all the mood part had worn off. It was nothing but like a small sliver of copper that would just slice into my finger if I moved wrong. And she saw what I was doing and was like, there's a pretty gazebo over there. She could tell what I was doing, and I was like, yes, let's wander over there. And so we wander over there, and interestingly enough, there was an old man with a guitar playing for this couple who was sitting outside the gazebo, and we were like, we don't want him to play for us, that's going to be weird. So I'll just act like I'm tying my shoe. I was wearing boots. Tying my shoe, and I was like, will you marry me? She was like, yeah. So we didn't want the awkward moment of some guy playing for us, and then we had to pay him. But right at that moment, like it started raining in San Antonio, right? So there's no clouds, it just rained. It would be unreasonable for me at this moment to say, oh, well, I just asked her to marry me. I guess every time I do that, it rains. And then I start like calling places with droughts and saying like, listen, I know you've been having trouble with rain. I'll offer my services. I'll come. I'll ask my fiance to marry me again, and then boom, you'll have rain. And I go and I do it, and I'm like, well, hold on, I guess it's not. Honey, we're breaking up. And I say, give me the ring back. 3, 2, 1. Will you marry me? And then she takes it. And I'm like, still no rain. I'm like, what the hell is going on? Because I would be an idiot if I equated the fact that it just rained right when I asked her to marry me. Like, that's the reason. So, be smart. Put a lot of thought into the assumptions that you make. Don't just make assumptions. Make reasonable conclusions based on evidence is how you should do everything. Word choice can be very important in the cause-effect paper, so especially when you revise a cause-effect paper, don't confuse words such as because, therefore, and consequently. Now, these are words that indicate a causal relationship because they say this happened because of this, with words like that imply a chronological relationship, like later, afterward, then, next, subsequently. Because we often will confuse words when we're talking. We'll say so then or so then. Like, let's go back to that example from earlier, the causal chain. I missed 3 months of school in 3rd grade from being very sick. So then I got behind all the other students. So then I cheated on my work. So then I didn't understand my work. All that literally means is I'm saying this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened. I'm not actually implying a causal relationship when I say so then. You have to use a word like which led me to say that, oh, this is definitely the thing that caused the other thing. So if you say things like so then, that's not going to communicate clearly to the reader that you're saying this is related by cause and effect. Now, 3 basic options for your paper on a cause-effect paper. You can discuss causes, you can discuss effects, you can discuss causes and effects. So you can discuss causes, discuss effects, discuss causes and effects. I don't think this is going to work on this group, but actually, this is actually a good one. Your thesis should tell your readers three things: the issues you plan to consider, the position you will take, and whether your emphasis is on causes, effects, or both. That's a thesis for a cause-effect paper. So the thesis in the sample paper might say something like, what was the one about obesity? She said that while people may contribute childhood obesity to a number of different factors, the major cause of childhood obesity is actually a lack of parental guidance. So the issues you plan to consider, that's in there, childhood obesity. The position you will take, it is caused by a certain thing. And the emphasis on causes, effects, or both. So it definitely seems to be on cause, not so much effects, since the effects seem to be almost implied. Childhood obesity, bad effects. So what's the cause? So that's probably the way you would structure any thesis, I would think, for cause effect. This is just something I did for fun. Causes of student note-taking. There are 3 PowerPoint methods known to result in students taking notes. 1, create numbered lists or bullet points. 2, utilize bold words to grab attention. 3, imply extreme importance with underlining. Like I said, that's just fun for me. That was just one time I made that to see if I could get students to write it down, just because it looks like something important. Doesn't it? It looks like an important slide. You're like, oh my gosh. It's got numbers and everything. But it's just a slide. Depending on the needs, like if you ever have to use cause effect in another class, like, maybe Mr. White says, I want you all to write me an essay, tell me what caused the Industrial Revolution. And you're like, all right. So you've got to now think, okay, well, what caused the Industrial Revolution? Do I want to just do this chronologically and go in order, historically, of what things led up to the Industrial Revolution? Or do I want to talk about the main cause of the Industrial Revolution first, then the contributory causes? So I establish real quick, here's what really was the cause, but here's some things people often attribute. Or the other way around, I make it like a reveal, where I start with the contributory causes, then end with the main cause, like, but actually, this is the reason. Do I stress positive causes maybe by starting out with the negative causes? So there were some bad things that led to the Industrial Revolution coming about, but there were also some good things that were happening that led to it. Or do I want to do the other way around? Do I want to dismiss the non-causes? People think it's this, but really, and then boom, you hit them with the real stuff. Or do I start with the most obvious stuff, then move into the stuff people might not expect? That actually might be more fun if you did the immediate and remote causes for popularity of the thing that you choose in the first topic. You might start with the stuff that is obvious. You will consider that, then move into the stuff people wouldn't consider, the stuff that is a little off the radar, so that you sound really good toward the end of your paper. So I mean, it all depends on what you feel the needs are for that particular paper, what the way you want to approach it. Mine tend to kind of tell you how to arrange it, but you can still, within even these, make a lot of choices on the papers that we have. So many options, as you can see. I've already assigned Essay 2, so that's not an issue. We did have time to read over the sample paper, correct? We read through the whole thing. Okay. Not every class did, that's what I was asking. We left early too?
Yeah, like.
How do we leave early?
We always leave early.
Now, let's see. Actually, that is as far as I want to go, so I guess we will leave a little early today. Mainly because I have a big old survey packet that I have to have students fill out in the other class, and I need that extra time, so y'all don't have to fill one out. I have to give it to one 1301 class, and they told me exactly which one. Y'all have a great day. Start working on that essay.